today. The rest of y'all, hope some people are on the live stream watching this. Um, so we're gonna conclude on chapter 16 today. We were on this chapter for like the past 2 weeks. It's quite a chunky guy. We're going to finish it off. I'll be guiding us through the last 15 verses. And as we know, Paul likes to talk with a lot of long sentences, so this is going to be a bit of a long one, so I hope you guys can keep up with me on this. The title of my sermon today is Jailbreak and Heartshake. I have been liking to rhyme the past 2 sermons, so do not look at me like I'm an R&B artist. Just know that I like rhyming sometimes. So we can start, if you guys have made it to Acts chapter 15, we'll start in verse 25 and go all the way to the end in 40. So let's begin. It says, "But about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns of praise to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. And suddenly there came a great earthquake, so that the foundation of the prison house were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened and everyone's chains were fastened. When the jailer awoke and saw the prison doors opened, he drew his sword and was about to kill himself, supposing that the prisoners had escaped. But Paul cried out with a loud voice, saying, 'Do not harm yourself, for we are all here.' And he called for lights and rushed in, and trembling with fear, he fell down before Paul and Silas. And after he brought them out, he said, 'Sirs, what must I do to be saved?' They said to him, 'Believe in the Lord Jesus, that you will be saved, you and your household.' And they spoke the word of the Lord to him, together with all who were in his house. And he took them that very hour of the night and washed their wounds, and immediately he was baptized, he and all his household. And he brought them into his house and set food before them, and rejoiced greatly, having believed in God with his whole household. Now when day came, the chief magistrates set their policemen, saying, 'Release those men.' And the jailer reported these words to Paul, saying, 'The chief magistrates have set to release you. Therefore come out now and go in peace.' But Paul said to them, 'They have beaten us in public without trial, men who are Romans, and have thrown us into prison, and now they are sending us away secretly? No, indeed, but let them come themselves and bring us out.' The policemen reported these words to the chief magistrates. They were afraid when they heard that they were Romans, and they came and appealed to them. And when they had brought them out, they kept begging them to leave the city. They went out of the prison and entered the house of Lydia. And when they saw the brethren, they encouraged them and departed." So yeah, I wasn't lying. It's a bit of a long one, but I'm going to try and help us break it down, like at least the five verses from 25 to 30, and then maybe go from 30 to 35, and then 35 to 40 there. So as it starts off, like in this whole chapter, it's not just coincidental that it's a lot of discussing about the power of the gospel, and how when it comes to just having someone's heart shaken, as we see from my title, that it has more power than just to do that. But with Paul and Silas in verses 24, singing about the hymns, in verse 25, singing about hymns and seeing that kind of change happen around them with the earthquake, that's all from the power of the gospel too. And we see that not only does it have a personal consequence to someone's own life, but also to the consequence, to also the changes in the church that are made after verses 35. Now, I want you guys to kind of think more about an earthquake and how it changes not just the landscape, but also the emotions inside people's hearts. They can definitely feel fear if it's like a strong enough earthquake, right? And when the city of Philippi was shaken by this earthquake, we don't have any kind of recollection or any kind of testimonies from them feeling it, but Earlier in chapter 16, we see that there is a riot started because of Paul and Silas's actions, and we can kind of equate a riot to the same kind of emotional trauma or physical trauma that an earthquake can provide. I know St. Louis had some riots too, guys. If we want to think back to maybe the George Floyd protests, there have been some damages that have happened too. I know the restaurant, we had to put up a BLM sign and it kind of protected us. It felt like putting the blood on the doors to protect us, like in Moses' time. But it's just very interesting to think about how riots have serious consequences for the city, and that's kind of what the magistrates were trying to avoid by putting them in prison so quickly, without any kind of trial or time to make their appeals. So moving on to the next point, we start to see that they're arrested, right? And that, like, when someone's arrested and they don't know what for, like, there's no kind of time for them to, like, process that. I don't know about you guys, but I would definitely feel like a lot of fear building up, like not knowing what's going to happen to my fate. But for God's people to be going through that, we know that no matter how dark the situation may be, that we need to remember that Jesus said, apart from him, we can do nothing, but also in that same power, because he also told us that we can take to heart, to gain confidence from him, because we have overcome the world. That's also what we see from the song we just sang in Quiet, that let him decide our future for us, not to worry about that, just to look at today and let him figure out what our future is. That's where it comes to be realizing that we need to trust him, not just believe in him, but to trust him, guys. So when I have a couple analogies I can give. So you guys seem like sitters, except Amanti. You guys like to sit down in your chairs, right? And you guys have belief that these chairs are there for you to help keep you guys sit up, right? But when it comes to Christianity, it's up to us to have faith that these chairs can hold us, but in the same, let me go back a little bit. So these chairs, we have faith in it to hold us. We need to have the same faith for God. So if you want to think of God like a chair, we think of him sitting down on him to let him encompass us, to give our weight to him, to give our good and our bad, like Emmanuel said, to not just hold back and give him only parts of us. That's the difference between belief and trust. And I want to go back to what they were doing while they were in prison. It seems like when you're giving hymns and worshiping, it's not just that you're worshiping God with. You're not just worshiping with your voice there. There's also the actions of just sitting there that are also showing other people that you have trust and faith in the Lord. Having contentment, just having the acceptance of being where you are and knowing that where you are is okay because God has your back, because you have full trust in God, that there is power to that. There is a seriously strong form of worship just by doing that, okay? Being still and letting him control it. I want us to go to 1 Timothy, I'll get that later. I want to go to 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6, and I'll read it to us all the way to verse 11. It says, "But godliness actually is a means of great gain when accompanied by contentment. For we have brought nothing into the world, so we cannot take anything out of it either. If we have food and covering, with these we shall be content. But those who want to get rich fall into temptation and snare and many foolish and harmful desires which plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all sorts of evil, and some by longing for it have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. But flee from these things, you men of God, and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, perseverance, and gentleness." And that just goes back to my point that contentment is a great form of faith and worship. I want you guys to look to your neighbors and say contentment. So if some of y'all didn't do that, I'm not content with y'all right now, all right? All right, I'm going to talk to y'all later, but right now I'm going to forgive you. I also want to kind of look to James chapter 1, 2 to 4. It's not just contentment that's important in this case, it's also about perseverance. Because I see it as with contentment, perseverance can lead, or with contentment, it can lead to perseverance. It says, "Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." It's not commanding us to be happy about our situations like in the joyous sense where we're clapping up and down, doing the hokey pokey, turn yourself around, guys. It's not just that, okay? It's when you find yourself in these kind of things, it's making a mental note to accept what it truly means, to have, knowing that these signs are of perseverance, that having your faith tested is a way for your faith to mature, to go through the fire, We've talked about this many times beforehand. I know we've loved to hear more about it, but it's essentially, in other words, it's for us to grow up. We have to grow up in our faith with Christ. We cannot be children for our whole lives, as much as some of us love to have our childish side, me included. I know Kathy can attest to this, but I really just like to be babied around. So having to be an adult really sucks, but it's going to have to happen, and God is going to put us in those situations where we have to be better adults too. And let's start talking about the jailer now. It seems that Paul had this confidence building up in him. Like, he's already very, very honed in his life with Christ at this point. But having the courage and having the boldness to speak with a person of authority, it doesn't sit easy with me to try to do that. Like, imagine having to try to convert your boss. God just tells you to do that. Like, is that going to be something easy you guys can think of doing? Like, I don't know about you, but if I had an earthquake behind me, though, I think maybe I get a little bit more power to my words there. But that's just me. So when we see this jailer see that his prisoners the doors are open, he's already assuming they're gone because it's dark and he doesn't hear anything. And he was really committed to taking his own life because in Roman culture, this is so interesting, but in Roman culture, the guards who allowed the prisoners to escape just received the penalty of the prisoner straight up. They take that on to them, and that kind of sounds familiar. I don't know if you guys can piece that together, but do you know a certain person that took his life for us because we sinned? 1 and 2 dots? Yep, all right, good. So it's just so strange to me that the chains in this situation also fell off the same way in Acts 12 for Peter did. When Peter was in prison, he was released by an angel, right? And in this case, though, the jailers did die. I'm not sure if they were just worse people, but I know God would forgive them anyway. But they were killed by Herod because of Peter's condemnation. He was already going to be sent to death. But the angel saved him, and the guards were responsible, so they had to die instead. And word of that probably did travel to Philippi at that point. So having the jailer feel that fear, that's a part of the conversion that took place there. And we need to remember that we need to go with the Lord and just keep our eyes and mind on Him. Whether we're feeling fear or confidence or perseverance, just to keep our eyes on Him, even when it gets hard. All right, we're going to go to verse 35 now. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what Paul did after he was told that he was freed. So it says the magistrates sent their policemen. Instead of sending themselves, they send someone to talk for them. And Paul, he got a problem with that. He's low-key a Karen at this point, but that's also a good thing. Karens aren't always bad guys, all right? They got to speak their truth, and in this case, Paul did. Paul said, let me talk to your manager. Y'all did these things to us, and you can't even look us in the eyes? When you do something wrong, you have to own up to it yourself. The person that's responsible for setting the rules has to own up to what they make someone else do because of those same rules. And just the fact that the magistrates were going beyond their own power, like their authority, going beyond your own authority, people have to put that in check. Right now, I know Americans aren't really putting our government in check, but back then it was a lot more easier to do it. Paul was having to speak boldly and courageously even in this point. We see earlier that Paul was okay with the situation that he was in, but he found the right time to talk and speak boldly as well. But there's a balance when it comes to perseverance, when it comes to just being okay with where you are. I'm already blanking on the word here, but guys, I told you guys what the word was. Contentment, right? So Paul had to find that balance between contentment and persevering and speaking boldly to stand up for what's right. And there isn't really a reason for why Paul really just got really mad at them. But we believe that it's because the church in Philippi was at the beginning stages right now. This whole chapter is talking about the birth of the church of Philippi. I don't know about you, but it's telling me that this is about Thessalonica, and you got to put the pieces together, put the pieces there. I had to Google it. It was Philippi and Thessalonica, and it says it was. So when Paul was looking out for them, we know that he loved them very much. And we see that in the first chapter of Philippians, that he tells them that he loves them very much and that he wants to bless them with so much, because they gave him something. They gave him some support structures, and he has given them the blessing to go about and trust that God has all their needs covered. So I want us to just understand the full power of the gospel that we've seen here in chapters 16. That the power was shown in full effect from the conversion of this first European person, Lydia, to releasing the possession of the slave girl, as well as the guards and the prisoners that had their own first-hand accounts of Paul and Silas giving them experiences, and also from the Holy Spirit through the power of the gospel, giving them their own experiences to share with the rest of their communities. And we see that a variety of people, from that, we see a variety of people have just been unified because of the gospel. They're all like this now. And that is essentially how the church was born. That's how the church of Philippi was born. It was because of all these workings of the Holy Spirit with Paul and Silas's workings in the Philippians area. But I want to just give us a few questions to process our time learning this. I want us to understand. I want us to know, I want us to think about, essentially, just has the gospel shaken the hearts, our foundations in our hearts? And if so, do you believe your faith is loud enough to get the attention of those who lack the same faith? I want us to ponder that. And on that note, I want to give the mic to Caleb now.
Thank you. Can we just give a quick hand for Sam here for